Hi, everyone. Tom Kreager with the Tennessean, joining on a special video to talk Metro football, Nashville Davidson County football with Mike Organ. Mike, I bring you in because you are the old school expert when it comes to old NIL, and I think you have a great great idea what's going on here. And first let's get to the news. Nashville Metro Public Schools, they postponed fall sports. Basically indefinitely, until further notice. Not a good sign with for what's going to go on. Of course we'll talk high school football, but even all sports. We're going to see what happens here. Some coaches are thinking they still have a glimmer of hope. Mike, what do you think?
I've heard that too, and I'm glad they do have that glimmer of hope for the kids' sake. But I think it's a stretch. They're not coming back before the start of October.
Yeah.
If they do come back then, they'll possibly could get in 5 games, I think you told me. And what do you do between now and then? I talked to some coaches Monday night that said morale was already low, very low. Mm-hmm. And then with that announcement yesterday, you got to think it's hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And do you practice between now and then? What do you do?
Yeah, and the question, there's 2 questions to be answered. You said October 1st, that's when they start to phase in, and they're going to start with kindergarten through 2nd grade. I think from what I understand, it may be January before we even get high school kids in there. So, if you have, and reason why I say that is, to me, the sticking point is going to be, all right, the health department, the Nashville Health Department made a recommendation that they're recommending no sports until those schools competing are in-person learning. And right now we're virtual. We're virtual until at least October, and really the high schools probably till January. So that's the first sticking point that someone has to answer before we know if we're going to have any fall sports is, can they get around that? Because they did also add, if you do play, if secondary education schools play, or if rec leagues play, they're recommending that each athlete gets 2 tickets, and each coach gets 2 tickets. And that would be great. That way you're gonna have a smaller crowd. There'll be no student sections, no band. So if they can bypass the health department recommendation on no sports until in-person learning, then I think they can play football this year. Right now, no one has told me if that is even an option. And I have a hard time believing that when you're talking about Nashville Metro government, that a Metro Health Department recommendation is going to be overlooked to play football using their other ones. I think that's a big obstacle, I think. And I think my understanding is, talking to some coaches, that they're going to talk to their principals by Friday and have recommendations of, can they play, can they not play, what can they do, here's their plan. And then I think they'll go to Superintendent Battle and say, here's our plan. Here's our plan, how we could make it work. Can we do it? Mike, I just think this whole health department recommendation is a huge obstacle that they're going to have to figure out how they can get around if they can.
Tom, I totally do not understand the health department's ruling, decision. I've covered 3 races, and I'm not getting off topic with this because it's under the same umbrella. I've covered 3 races this summer at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. We started out with 1,100 fans, and we got up to 2,550. I sat next to Dr. Michael Caldwell, the health director. At each race, he was satisfied with the progress that was being made. He told me at the first race, he thought we were probably at 55 to 60% compliance with social distancing and masks being worn and everything. I'm going by the CDC recommendations. At the second race, he told me that he thought that had increased from 55 to 60% to about 80%. At the third race, at the end of the night, he and I were standing in this press box, and I said, how did it go? He said, I'm happy with everything. Except for I'm a little concerned with what's going on in the pits. The pit area, you've been out there, 200-300 people in the pit area. He thought they were standing a little too close together. Maybe the masks weren't being worn. He had not monitored that as closely the first 2 races. This was a progress. And he told me, he said, this is being used as a model. We're using the fairgrounds as a model to bring sports back to Nashville, including
and now we can't do it.
Yeah, and everything was going fine, and it was progressing well. The next race was scheduled for this upcoming Saturday, and then the mayor last week said that there would be no football fans or soccer fans in Nashville through September. And then I think somebody reminded him what was going on at the fairgrounds, and then the day after that, he came back and said, "Oh yeah, we're not going to have racing at the fairgrounds anymore either." It's hard to make any sense out of this when the mayor's not showing his work. He's not explaining why he's making the rules he's making, or the health department, which I heard firsthand telling me that things were progressing and that they had a model that they were using, and that it was successful.
I want to know what the end game is at this point, is because if the end game is we're not playing sports until we get down to zero or until there's a vaccine, let's just say it and get it over. We need to know what the end game is to bring back sports, because I go back to the kids. The kids in March the spring athletes got a raw deal. The basketball players got a raw deal. I mean, it wasn't their fault. It wasn't anyone's fault. The pandemic hit. We didn't know much about it. They had to stop the games. They had to cancel school. So they had to cancel all, the state basketball tournaments and spring fling. I get all that, but we know a lot more, I think, now in August. Now they figured out a method. Bernard Childress, who wrote a very interesting, very readable letter to Shelby County officials who are thinking about pulling out of the TSBA. In that thing, he talks about all the medical experts they have talked to. They feel that they can safely have sports. Now, is there going to be cases? Yes, but it's how you're going to mitigate everything. So you try to mitigate it as best you can. And if there are cases, can you contact trace? There are cases. It's a virus. People are going to get this virus until there's a vaccine. We know that. The question is, how safe can we play high school sports? I think we'll know more probably early next week on what happened with our week one. I think it took probably about a little over a week to see, are we going to see a big increase of cases at different schools? I think that'll be an interesting thing to say. And then the obvious thing is, I can't play sports, but down the road at Lipscomb Academy, they can play sports? How is it I can't play sports at Cane Ridge, 10 minutes down the road, Laverne can play? How is it I can't play sports at McGavick, 10 miles down the road, Green Hill can play? That is the question on every coach, on every athlete, and every parent's mind, is why us when everyone around us can play sports. And then I think that's what we owe it. I think our city leaders need to be able to explain specifically, this is why we have stopped it, and we won't start it, and here's where we need to get. Because these kids who have been unknown since March, and I guess this is my soapbox, they do not need to go through a whole football season going, well, we think we may be able to play at the end of the season. We need to know, can we reach this? Are we going to play football in Metro? If not, these people need to know. They can't be just practicing until, October. It's like, well, I guess we're not going to play. There needs to be definitive answers, and the word "until further notice" cannot happen, because I think these kids have been through too much. They don't need that uncertainty right now.
I mean, even if you do continue to practice, what do you do at practice for the next 5 weeks before that 6 weeks when you're finally practicing for game week? What do you do between now and during those 5 weeks? I mean, it only takes so long to put fundamentals in. I mean, you're out there in a hot practice. There's no payoff coming on Saturday. Morale has to be just rock bottom. I mean, there's just nothing to be out there. There's no reason to be out there for. You're not improving. You're not getting better playing against yourself. The same kid day after day lining up against him. So why have you heard that an announcement had to be made yesterday, whereas it could have been closer to the target date that they were shooting for? Why couldn't they wait another week or two? This goes back to the Big Ten, what it did. The Big Ten can look terrible for canceling its season. The Big Ten called its football season off way back. Why did they have to make this announcement yesterday?
That's a really good question. I think you and I both Monday night, we started hearing rumblings that this was going to be announced Tuesday. I think you called me or I called you, and first thing you said, yep, Metro's going to be canceled. And I kept hearing canceled, and the word cancel has not been read, has not been said publicly with the board. I have had one person tell me the word cancel of sports was told when they were talking to teachers and coaches on that 3:00 call. I've got to get that confirmed by a couple more people, but I was told that that word was used. So, there's a question. There's a question there. That's a good question. I don't think anyone knows why now. Like I said, you could have waited. And I think part of the reason why you had to make an announcement now is because they cannot do contact drills. They pretty much, this was really an important week. At some point this week, they need to start doing contact drills because you have to have 10 days in. And if you waited till next week, you were going to probably have to practice on Saturday or Sunday to get your 10 days of practice in contact drills. And I haven't talked. I think they've heat acclimated. I think that has happened. But, that also has to happen if it hasn't. They have to have 5 days of heat acclimation before you do the contact practices. And every football player in the state has to do that to be able to play. Changing gears here, I talked to a prominent coach on Monday, and we talked about this because he had heard the same thing, and he told me that if we don't play football this year in Metro Nashville, their program itself will be put back 2 years. And this is a more successful program. All right, think about we talked a year ago about Glencliff was struggling. They shut down for about 24, 48 hours, and then they end up coming back. But what about those programs that are just struggling to build numbers, and all of a sudden now you don't even have a season? That's gonna push things back even further, I think. And the other thing with that is, that same coach I was talking to, we were talking, and it seemed like he was in tears because he was like, these kids, a lot of these kids, football is their way out. And, and to be able to afford to go to college, and some of them, Cane Ridge does a great job putting kids in colleges. Pearl Cone at Tony Bernetti does a great job getting kids scholarships, giving them a chance to play college football, but more importantly, get that college education. They may not all be FBS schools. It may be Cumberland. It may be Swanee. It might be, Bethel. But he finds places where if that kid wants to play college football, he has an option. Without tape, you've got juniors, now seniors, that maybe will start to really blossoming late. And maybe they have a little bit of highlights, but not a lot. The Kendrick Breedloves, who's committed to Ole Miss, he's fine. He's got a place to play. William Parker, the offensive lineman at Pearl, he's going to announce early September. He's got places. He's got options. Those guys are going to find colleges to go to. It's that next level that is still trying to get their name and their tape out there to coaches. What about them? And that's the question there. It's the high school, those high school athletes, and I know, people say, well, it should be about the education, but that playing college football and getting scholarships can help those guys get a college education where they may not be able to afford being there if they didn't have that scholarship.
Private schools can play. Private school kids can increase their possibility of getting a scholarship or get a better scholarship than what they've already been offered by having a good senior year. But the bottom line is most private kids schools are going to go to college anyway. A lot of them are. And it doesn't matter. They don't need football to get there so much. But for so many, like you just said, for so many public schools in Metro, football is what will get these kids in college. And that's the terrible thing is that private schools are allowed to play and publics aren't, and the kids are the ones that need football to get them in college more than the private schools.
If I was a Metro coach personally, I would be calling several coaches, several areas and say, what are you doing? What is your policies? And say, what can we adopt? What can we do as a Metro program? Say, hey, here's why I believe we should play football. We've talked to 35 coaches or how many coaches you've talked to. These are the plans we've developed. This is what they say that they do. And some of our Metro coaches have done a great job. I think at Hillsboro, they temperature check every day. They write down the temperature every day for every kid. So they have documentation of what every kid's temperature was. In Shelby County, last time I heard, they don't even have a football out at practice. There's no helmets. They can't get in the weight rooms. Of course, you can't get in the weight rooms in Nashville right now either. And they've done everything they've been told to do. So we're going to wait. Hopefully there's a way that we can safely come back they can come up with a plan where they feel it's safe to play high school football in Davidson. Of course, we will be reporting all of that. Mike Organ, I appreciate you joining us. Kind of short notice, came across last night. Thanks for joining us on this video, and folks, we'll continue to cover this. We really, I know Mike is so involved with high school sports, with the old NIL, and his Facebook page is phenomenal. Folks, we really we sympathize with you, and we just hope that we can figure out a way to return to sports.